Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Christiana's Psychic Cafe, and I'm your guest host tonight, Mary Ellen Collins. I wanted to guest host and bring Christiana on as the person that we're going to get our wisdom from tonight, because having participated in a few shows in the past, I thought, who do I want to hear from out in the tarot world? And she was the first person that I thought of. So I asked her if I could pull the old switcheroo on her, and she amenably said, yeah, let's go for it. So here we are. Now, Christiana, in addition to being a gifted tarot reader, is also what I consider to be a tarot maven. And a maven is a trusted expert in a field who seeks to encourage and bring knowledge to others about that field. And that, to me, just basically sums up what she does. She has been a practicing tarot reader for over 25 years and a teacher as well. She has a blog with an accompanying newsletter that's really, it's not just, sometimes it goes off on really interesting tangents, but it definitely brings new flavor to tarot. We can learn about tarot through classes wherever she is, but also she's conquering the World Wide Web with her webinars. So she's really got it going on. So let's go ahead and get going with Christiana. And my first question for you is what I like to ask a lot of tarot readers. How did you get started in tarot?
Wow. Okay. When I was very young, I was really interested in mystical things. And my mother was a big Edgar Cayce fan, so we had some mystical stuff in the house. So I was interested in psychic things and magic and witchcraft as a very young person. When I went back to my hometown after starting my business as a tarot reader, none of my friends from elementary school were surprised at what my profession was.
Yeah.
But in terms of tarot, I did not get my first tarot deck until I was about mid-20s. Prior to that, I had done some work with the I Ching, but I thought that the idea of divination by cards was ridiculous. I'm an incredibly skeptical person. And to me, it just seemed like BS. And I resisted it, but it kept calling me. The images showed up in my life in all kinds of weird ways. And it just kept calling me. And so finally I bought a deck and I carried it around with me for about a year. And then finally I took a class and learned how to read. And immediately I was reading for my friends and people were coming by with baked goods asking for readings. It happened so quickly that my friends were just, they didn't want to come and talk to me anymore. They wanted readings. And so I was resistant to the whole thing for a long time.
That's really surprising on a couple of levels. First of all, what was it about cards versus I Ching that you resisted?
Right? What an interesting question. What is it about cards versus I Ching that I resisted? I have no idea. Mm-hmm. It could have been sort of a Christian holdover. I went to a born-again Christian high school. That wasn't a great fit, but, so there could have been a holdover there. I don't know. It just, maybe the tossing of the coins and the complexities of the hexagrams, the ancient nature of I Ching versus the relatively new history of tarot maybe made a difference.
Okay. Well, and having been raised in the Midwest in the Bible Belt, I can definitely understand that vibe. I had an unused tarot deck that sat on my shelf for many a year. Do you remember what deck your first deck was?
Oh, of course, I still have it. It was the RWS, the Rider-Waite-Smith in the yellow box with the plastic.
Ta-da!
Absolutely, and my first book was the black paperback Eden Gray's Complete Book of Tarot. That was it.
There you go. So that, and from that An entire career blooms.
And so I just have this image in your head, okay? An old Slant 6, one of those Valiant cars that you can't kill back from, from the 70s. But it's now the 80s, so it's a really old car. And in this car are 6 people, I'm one of them, driving through the Midwest wheat fields on the way to a rainbow gathering, a Grateful Dead show, something. And there I am in the back of the car reading the Eden Gray book and learning how to read tarot. That's the image, that's really where it started right there. The boredom of many hours of wheat fields gave birth to my career.
Yeah, I kind of like it that the vibe of going to a Grateful Dead concert is interwoven into your tarot apprenticeship as well.
Well, and to be perfectly honest, that's where I did my first readings for strangers. Yeah. Up until that point, it was all readings for friends and people I knew, and that was helpful because I could look at the cards and I knew something about the person. Yes. And so I could say, this is a picture of that, and I know that.
Yes.
And so that was very helpful. And so that's one thing I would say to all tarot students is read for your friends, read for the people you love, read for the people you know, because you'll see how the cards speak to you.
Yes.
And then when you're reading for people you don't know, the cards will still speak the same way for the most part. So my first readings for people I didn't know in the parking lot of Dead shows. And my handwriting is so bad. I've told this story before, but it's such a funny story. My handwriting is so bad that the handwritten sign I made that said tarot readings for trade, the first guy who approached said, toast readings? What's a toast reading? So that was my ignoble start.
Well, I've heard it said you can read just about anything once you understand the art of divination, but I haven't tried toast. Very good. So, well, that makes me think, because knowing you a little bit, I realize that you've done all different kinds of gigs. I've been on a few of them with you. I know you've done some radio. You had Christiana's traveling psychic show. So tell me a little bit. Let's go back to the radio days.
Oh, sure. Well, and this is all interwoven. When we talk about, the story I just told was how tarot came into my life, but then the question of how I became a professional reader is a different matter, in that I really didn't see a way that was possible. I wanted to be a professional reader, but I didn't know how that could be. I wasn't Mary Greer, I wasn't Rachel Pollack, and I wasn't sure there was room in the world for more than that. It wasn't like it is now. And I met a guy who asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up because he recognized I had no career. And I said, well, there's a thing that I want to do. It's a thing I'm really good at, but I don't see how it could be a job. And I told him, and he didn't laugh at me. And he called me up, probably that just like a week later, he called me up on a Friday and said, get it together. I'm coming to pick you up tomorrow, 8:30, and you're working at a psychic fair.
Ah.
And he had just arranged this for me.
Perfect.
So I did marry him. just so you know, that is how the story progressed. So that was my first foray into professional reading, and that went very well. And then his next piece of advice to me was, you need to be on the radio. So at the time, we were living in Putnam, Connecticut. A couple of years had passed in there. And Putnam, Connecticut has this great AM radio station. It sits right in the middle of town, and it's just the hub of activity. It's an old-time community station. And so I marched myself down there, and I went in, and I gave them my business card that I had printed out on my inkjet. And I said, I'm Christiana, I read tarot cards. I'd like to read for your callers on the air. And they said yes.
Awesome.
They decided they wanted me on the full moon, and the morning host, Gary O, who now is the owner of the station, he eventually bought the station, said that we would take calls and I would do readings for as long as people kept calling. They called for years. I became his official psychic and worked with him for years, and that was the start. And that was such an interesting experience because the calls are not pre-recorded. It is literally live on the air. If you call into an FM station, you're calling in during the music, so the calls can be edited or chosen. Are we going to play this? Or are we not going to play that? On WINY in Putnam, I was absolutely live on the air right there. And that was really trial by fire, but it worked.
Wow.
And then the next big thing that happened is I moved into FM, and I was the resident psychic of a number of different stations. One station, Q105 in New London, Connecticut, the female co-host got pregnant and went on maternity leave. And it turned out that I had Arbitron numbers. People were writing my name in as a favorite personality. So they called and asked if I would fill in as the morning show co-host. So that started a whole side career for a little while.
Wow.
And I've been the morning show co-host of 3 different stations, a rock station, a hip-hop station, and Q105, which is adult contemporary.
Well, that makes you so well suited for the things you do, like, for example, this internet TV that you have going with the Psychic Café.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely.
So now, let me ask you, though, were you ever nervous, like, in the beginning or even throughout the years when callers, I mean, these are just people that are out there. There's no, you're on the air. Did you ever have any crazy calls that kind of made you scratch your head or?
You know, there was so much potential for disaster in that formula, and no disaster ever happened. And I never worried about it. I have so much faith in the process of what I do. I just never worried about it, and it just never happened. And, you know, and in fact, Gary and I would talk about that, you know, how there was such a potential for something crazy to happen. But it just never did.
Well, I mean, that's the basics of Metaphysics 101. We perceive that, you know, first the thought, then the word, then the deed. So if we think it's going to happen, then we might manifest just exactly that, but you did not. Instead, you manifested an excellent career. So what about, in the meantime, did you open an office?
Oh, yes. I had, first, my first business location, again in Putnam, Connecticut, which is just a lovely little town, very near where Donna Lay lives. As a matter of fact, Donna Lay is in Woodstock, Connecticut, where my husband and I got married, interestingly. So we were in Putnam, Connecticut, and we rented this big old Victorian house. It was just, you know, one of those huge, huge houses. So I had a tarot room, and I saw clients there. And that business just grew so quickly. And one of the keys to that, too, was I started teaching tarot through adult education. Right at that same time. And that was really great. Eventually, I opened an office in the downtown area. Downtown Putnam is just a cute, it's an antiques district. Very cute, New England. Oh, so lovely. I opened an office there, and we did so many fun things there. Very much like the things we did in the Harvey Building in West Palm Beach. So I've had offices in a number of places. Eventually, I moved my office south, and I moved myself south, starting with New London, then Pennsylvania, then Florida. It worked like that. But this is actually the first time in my career that I haven't had an actual office location. I am pretty much, I do phone, I do Skype, I do house calls, house parties, things like that, and I'm not keeping an office right now, and that's very unusual for me.
Well, in view of all the other things that you're in the middle of, I wonder if that, it's almost like perfect timing for that.
Yeah.
You know, the Christiana tarot vibe is too big for an office. So one of the things that I wanted to know about was your experience with psychic fairs. I remember you telling me about that. You had actually put one together?
Yes. Christiana's Psychic and New Age Fair. We traveled throughout Connecticut, Massachusetts, and we did this in the 1990s. Traveling psychic fairs were not unusual, and I patterned mine to some extent after the one that I first worked at, but I changed up a couple of things. The one where I worked, readings were 15 minutes, and every 15 minutes they rang a bell. And one of my mottos was no bells. If the reader wanted to take extra time with their client, they could. End of story. So that was a difference. I tried to have a different energy. We had some wonderful readers who traveled with us. My featured reader was Gary McKinstry. He's in the Sturbridge area in Massachusetts, and he's very good. I also had Tannen from Bones and Flowers in Worcester, Massachusetts. She is outrageous, fabulous. A lot of great readers. And it was a wonderful thing. We worked for about 2 years. And I think the reason we stopped is I just got too busy otherwise. It's very time intensive. Promoting a psychic fair, finding the venues, getting the people together, interviewing new readers, doing the promotions. We didn't have the internet then. Promotions for the psychic fair were I would make a flyer that I would have to go and get printed, and then I would go into the town and put the flyer up on bulletin boards throughout the town. I can tell you where every laundromat is throughout Connecticut and Massachusetts. And that's how we did it.
Yeah.
So it was labor intensive, and past a certain point, I didn't want to do it anymore.
Well, sure, but what great energy, and the fact that you put that together. I think, basically cast your bread upon the waters there. So if you're putting that kind of energy where you start something like that, then I'm guessing that throughout your career you've had certain things come back to you in a very good way, I would imagine.
Well, sure. And I would say first and foremost, the fact that I've been able to have a career, a full-time career as a tarot reader. If you're going to do it or if I'm going to do it in a way that feels ethical, it's not the easiest thing to make happen.
Right.
So the first reward is I'm doing it, and I have been doing it, and I'm going to keep on doing it. And the second, I think, is the wonderful people, my peers and colleagues like you, my friends like you, my students, my clients, all of the people that I meet, both locally and in social media. It's a fabulous thing. It's something that ties us together, I think.
Well, I think that's one of the things, if I may interject a little bit here, is that that sort of sets you apart as a tarot. I would say the way you put energy into the community, and it's an open feeling of sharing. And very much you came into the South Florida area, into my area where I was, and said, this is my intention, and you shared it with all of us. I'm going to make this whole South Florida, part of my territory. Come along, let's go, And it's a feeling of there's enough for everyone, and there's abundance here. And that's what I really like about the energy and the style. So a psychic fair, or a lot of the other things that you've done, the tarot circle, meetup that originated through Meetup and even has morphed over into the web these days, and that sort of thing. Tell me a little bit about that. How's that going these days?
It is going really well. And let me talk about that from two perspectives. One is Tarot Circle, which started in Plainfield, Connecticut in 2000 and has been this thing that just kind of comes along with me wherever I go.
Yeah.
And you've been part of that in Jupiter and in West Palm Beach. And what I've got going now is we meet every month online on WebEx. It's completely free. We meet for 1 hour, and basically the way it goes is we start with some introductions, and we just met last week. We had someone from Mexico, someone from Italy, people from all over the world coming together and sharing information about tarot. And the first thing we do as we introduce ourselves is we share questions. And that can be questions about tarot, a card I don't understand, a reading I did that didn't make sense, or a technique question, or it could be the kind of question that you would want to ask a room full of tarot readers. My love life, my career, whatever. And so we do readings for each other, and we answer the questions. It's not just me answering the questions. We all answer the questions.
Yeah.
And then I'll have a short workshop prepared. Generally, it's a 20-minute thing where people have a chance to do an exercise or do a reading. And we're done in an hour, and it is just so much fun. Of course, I do webinars that are more like classes as well. And right now I have a series of 5 premium webinars and 2 free webinars that repeat throughout the year. And part of the idea of doing free stuff, and that goes back to the whole sharing with the community. You're right, I feel like there's enough of everything to go around, and that sharing knowledge and sharing the opportunity for fellowship is really what it's all about. I mean, yeah, this is my job. This is how I supported my kids. This is how I support myself and my family now. But, like you were talking about earlier, in terms of our metaphysical mindset, there's enough business to go around. There's enough money to go around. There's enough of everything to go around. So I like to share, and I like to make things available. Now, my premium webinars are cheap. They're $20 each, and I keep a very small class size so everyone gets individual attention.
Nice.
So that's my commitment. My teaching, in many ways, is my commitment to building the community and sharing the knowledge.
Well, you just gave me an idea thinking about your webinar. I could give that to my niece in Missouri who wants to learn tarot,
What fun.
as a gift. So people, that's a good gift idea. If you want one of the best tarot teachers around, no matter where you live, you can do it. But yeah, no, I think the feeling of sharing and the whole spiritual flow and talking about that, I think different tarot readers have different approaches to it. Some people are more descriptive, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. They're not really going to go into projecting into the future that much, but they'll tell you, they sort of look at the patterns that are current for you. Other people are more advice giving, and there's a whole debate about that going on the website that I'm part of.
Really?
For Tarot Forum in the Lenormand section, but I digress. But, really, what's your view? Are you kind of coming at tarot from a spiritual point of view? Is it, when you sit down with a client, are you problem solving? Are you an advisor? What's your philosophy?
All of the above. All of the above. I believe that when we sit down with the cards with the intention of doing a reading, everyone is present. The person I'm reading for, their higher consciousness, their higher self, their angels, guides, guardians, whatever you want to call that energy that accompanies us, that's all present. Mine, whatever that is, that's all present. And so what we're doing is we're asking the universe, what's most important?
Yeah.
And the cards may come up in a way that offers advice. The cards may come up in a way that make a prediction. The cards may come up in a way that offers spiritual insight. And so I'm open to all of those things. I think that, in most readings, all of those things will happen kind of at the same time. And I just try to be open to that as it flows through. when I do a reading, I really, it's an interesting thing because I am bringing, years of knowledge and experience and all of that. But in many ways, I feel like I am a conduit. I am a straw bringing in an energy and letting that flow through me.
Yeah.
And you know what that feels like. I mean, when you're in the zone, when you're reading, that's what happens.
Yes.
And I am sort of able to just always work in that zone. And what that's done for me is I have a fairly limitless supply of energy. Yeah. I can do huge parties. I can do huge days of reading and live to tell the tale. And that's been very helpful in my career as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And anybody that's maybe at kind of early days in their tarot career, if you get a big event, like one I'm thinking about a number of years ago, where we just read for 3 hours nonstop. I couldn't speak afterwards. When you were like, well, that was good, wasn't it? And that was the difference between, the experience. Since that time, I've, been able to understand that and work with tarot in that respect. But it's important to, in my prayers, I ask for higher self to step in. Let lower self step out of the way and higher self to step in, because that's whom I'd like to have the sitter be advised by.
Right. Absolutely.
Now let's see, something else that you have going on. You have an excellent newsletter, Tarot Topics,
yes.
That, you distribute by means of on the internet through your blog. So what's the scoop with that? How can we get copies of that and sign up?
Sure. All you have to do is go to my website, tarotbychristiana.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. It comes out every Wednesday. And I don't think there is anything in the world like this newsletter. I think this is a completely new thing under the sun. Each week I take care of a different topic. It can be anything from the element of water to compassion to study. It can be anything. And we'll look at that topic and we'll look at how we can address that topic with tarot. In what way does this topic connect with tarot? And so I might have a tarot spread or a tarot exercise or a new way of looking at the cards. Each week we also have your one card weekly reading and a learning tarot segment where I'm teaching one card each week. We also have information on webinars coming up, what's going on in the Psychic Café. I like to share not only my blog posts, but some other great blog posts that I find around the internet each week. And so that comes in your inbox every single week on Wednesday. And it's a great way of keeping in touch with my schedule and what's going on. But it's also a way of keeping in touch with your cards. Because if you do those exercises once a week, you will grow as a tarot reader. And it's free.
Well, and that would go nice. It would go hand in glove with taking the webinars too. If you're in Kansas City, Missouri, or someplace other than Florida, it would be a good set. But I agree with you strongly about practicing. I'm always getting my cards out, trying new spreads, doing something, not on a daily basis, but 2 or 3 different new things a week, because I hope that keeps me sharp and I can be a better reader.
Right.
So it sounds like that's where you're coming from, and you're teaching other people to do that.
Absolutely. And even after all these years, I do that. You have to stay fresh. You have to stay, and you have to stay fresh in a few different ways. It's really easy to get stuck, even culturally. I come from a different culture than the culture of 2014. So I think we have to not only stay current with our tarot skills and expand our tarot skills, but we have to stay current in culture and in tarot culture, keeping up with the new decks that are coming out and the different conversations that are being had in the community. So there's a lot of continuing education.
I agree. Speaking of decks, one of my favorite topics in the whole world. I know you have more than one deck. Do you have some favorites that you, maybe through the years, you've
Well, I'm a weight girl. I really am. Most of my working reading decks, and I have a great collection. I've got decks from all different places and time periods. But for reading, I like decks that are weight-based. Here on my desk right now is my universal weight. It's plain, it's sturdy, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But there it is. What else do I have on my desk right now? I have, here it is. I have Legacy of the Divine.
Ah,
Right?
Chiro. Woohoo.
Absolutely. I have yet another weight deck. This is the original pack.
Ooh.
Right? And what else do I like? I like Spiral Tarot very, very much.
Yeah.
I like Hanson Roberts. I like Robin Wood. I like World Spirit, and I am heartbroken that it's out of print. In terms of newer decks, what do I love? Crystal Visions. What a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful new deck. So beautiful. Gives me chills. Love it. Now, on my wish list, I was just thinking about this. You know, my birthday is in October. And then right after that, we have the winter gift giving opportunities. So I was thinking I should put together my gift list. What do I want? And top on my list is Wild Unknown.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, people who love that deck love, love, love it.
Love that deck. And it's so outside of my typical tarot thing is I am weight-based. I like to see pictures of people doing things.
Yeah.
Which the Wild Unknown is not. But there is something about it that really strikes my fancy. So I want to play with it.
Well, that's the whole thing with a deck. It doesn't matter. Some decks can be very excellent, and we click with them or we don't.
Right.
And it's nothing against the art or the concept or anything like that. It's just, you know, I think there's probably over 2,000 tarot decks.
Oh, many more, I would think.
You think?
Oh, yeah. He's got Stewart's encyclopedias. He's got like 4 of those big fat encyclopedias. Right? There's got to be more than 2,000 decks in all of those, no?
I don't know. That's a good question.
That is a great question. What is the number of tarot decks?
Yeah,
we'll have
now.
To figure that out. But we know it's a lot.
What?
We know it's a lot.
Yes, it is, definitely. And then, well, just speaking of publications and things that we find on our desk, I have on my desk a couple of my favorite books that you are the author of. One is Fortune Stellar for the aspiring and already professional tarot reader. And also this book as well, Your Tour Guide for Tarot. I got a good shot of that in there. And essentially, you've packed a lot of knowledge and wisdom into these. One is more for I'm learning, or I'm an intermediate, I would say, tarot reader, and I want to strengthen my skills. And that's the tour guide. And the other is I'm growing my tarot business. So let's talk about your books. Your first one was what? Fortune Stellar?
Fortune Stellar. And, you know, I just found out recently that Fortune Stellar has been chosen for a BTR Radio book club.
Nice.
And so here's an interesting thing that I didn't really get about writing, is that a book will actually increase in popularity over time. You know, it did very well when it first came out, and I thought that would be it, you know, that it would be like pop music. It does well and then it goes away. No, Fortune Stellar is more popular now than it ever was, and apparently still relevant enough. I was reading through it the other day, and there was something about MySpace. I was writing about social networking, and I mentioned MySpace. I was like, oh my gosh, that's really dated.
Yeah.
But, you know, it came out in 2009, 2010, something like that. But this book really is the sum total of my experiences building a tarot business and working with students as they built their businesses. It works with the premise, and this is something that I think we forget a lot, that as tarot readers, we have the ability to create whatever kind of tarot business we want. You know, we have a lot of flexibility, a lot of options, and that we should use our primary tool, our cards, to help us build our business. And so there's a lot of sort of practical knowledge in the book, but there's also exercises that you can do with your cards to help you come up with a business plan. So if you read this book, it's done in lessons rather than chapters. If you read this book, by the end, you should have a sense of where you want your business to be and how you're going to get there.
Yeah, that's what I loved about it, was that you told the story through tarot. I mean, what's more appropriate? You are a tarot storyteller, and you have a career story, a successful one, so others want to know about that, and that's how you presented it to us. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, Tarot Tour Guide is really all about the 4 elements. And for me, the 4 elements, not only does it provide the framework for my tarot understanding, but it provides the framework for my spiritual understanding. And so I wanted to present tarot as an effective tool, but also as a guide on the spiritual journey. And the way I present that is through the idea of the 4 elements. And so in Tarot Tour Guide, there's really sort of a hodgepodge of things. There are magic spells to do with tarot. There are meditations, including this really funky 4 elements meditation. There are spreads, lots of different tarot spreads. And there are ways of looking at tarot, perspectives on tarot, to help each person come to an understanding of what tarot is and how it works in their life. There's also description for all 78 cards, so a brand new beginner can use this book.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that one of the best things about telling the story of tarot through the elements is that a lot of times we struggle with being able to understand maybe some of the energy of the minor arcana in particular. And so that gives a format or a framework that people might be, utilizing elsewhere. So it's a really, it's very pertinent and very useful, and I recommend them to everyone. Yeah. So let's see, there are so many different things that you do. I'm trying to remember if we've covered everything. Newsletter, blog, books, lots and lots of readings. You're available by Skype.
Oh yeah, phone and Skype, absolutely, from anywhere in the world. I only speak English, but if you can get me a translator, I can read for anyone.
There you go.
And I'm also available for parties and corporate events throughout Florida. And I do travel to Connecticut once a year. I'll be in Connecticut for 3 weeks this August. And so I'm available for parties there as well.
So speaking of traveling, not so much traveling, but our great state of Florida, what's happening in the tarot world here?
Well, some interesting things. An announcement has been made recently. TarotCon is coming to Florida.
Woohoo!
Yes.
Exciting.
We're not sure what city yet, but I'm very excited about this. I really enjoy tarot conventions of all kinds. I've been to quite a few, not enough, but some. And I'm looking forward to this. And I think it will be as good a conference as we make it. I think the thing about the cons, even though they have sponsorship from the very large Tarot Professionals organization, what is going to make or break the cons is the local people, you and me and all the people we have here. So I'm hoping that people will come out and be willing to teach and participate and be part of building something great here in Florida.
I think there's a lot of potential for that between the Eclectic Tarot Forum that I hang out on, and the tarot groups that we've been part of online and in real life. And that's just, I think, a tip of the iceberg. There's lots and lots of people in Florida that do tarot. And Florida is kind of a tarot-friendly area, as it were.
Really is, yes, yes.
Earlier we were, not to cast any aspersions to the Bible Belt, but it's just a different energy. I think folks are just focused on other things. And here, though, it's more kind of open, and, there's a lot more willingness to embrace some of the mores of metaphysics to make life better.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so people can do that. And, I think what's interesting, too, is that a tarot convention does not just attract tarot professionals, but also it attracts people that they're just tarot groupies. They don't care. They're never going to read. They're not interested. They learn the techniques because they care about tarot, but they just like anything to do with it. Yes. And other people come because they may have something else. Maybe they're astrologers or, other things that are in related fields to the work we do, and they like to enhance what they're doing. So there's all kinds of potential there, and that's really exciting.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will say, too, I've got a fun thing going on in the private resort community in which I live. I've been doing a private tarot circle here that has just grown in leaps and bounds. And so I'm looking at starting a local tarot circle in the Tampa Bay area, open to the public. So in this part of Florida, I think starting in September, we'll have some in-person opportunities to meet up. And I'm looking at doing it maybe on a Sunday afternoon so the people from Orlando can come. I don't know what we're going to do to people from Palm Beach County, but...
Well, you're just going to have to come over here and hit us a weekend here and there,
And from time to time, I absolutely do, and will continue to.
Well, let's see. I think I've kind of, covered a lot of what's going on for you in the world of tarot. Is there anything that you wanted to add or talk about in terms of your vision or your...
I would just really encourage anyone who has an interest in tarot, no matter how that comes about for you, to do as I ultimately did and get over the skepticism, get over the disbelief, and play with it. Because the thing about tarot is, if you let it, it will speak to you, and it will be very clear that that is what's happening. And you can be scientific, you can be skeptical, you can be grounded, you can be all of those things, and you can see the reality and the truth of what is here. And it is enlightening, and it is encouraging, and it is inspiring. And it's available to everyone.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely, you speak from your heart, but I think you speak for all of us that care a lot about being able to touch whatever that is out there, that energy of the universe that flows into us through that tool.
Right.
And I, for one, am very, very glad that you're one of our mavens, as I referred to you earlier, that's making it happen. So it's been a pleasure to speak with you and get some of your views and get a chance to turn the tables a little bit. And we'll be looking forward to some of the other guests that you have coming up. I know you always have someone interesting.
I always do, and I want to direct everyone to my YouTube channel where you'll see all the Psychic Cafe shows. They're not all up yet, but they're coming, and you'll find them there. So if you don't catch us on a Sunday night, you'll catch us there, and you'll see my interviews with Mary Ellen Collins and Teresa Reed and Bridget Esselmont, and all kinds of interesting people in the world of tarot and metaphysics. Mary Ellen, I want to thank you so much for being on the show in this capacity. Tell people how they can reach you.
Well, I'm on Facebook, Mary Ellen Collins. That's one real quick and easy way to reach me. or you can reach me through marycollins0128 at comcast.net. I'm available by Skype, or if you're in the West Palm area, I'd be happy to give you a reading.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you.